Dina Al-Amood, and I'm the Editor-in-Chief of Outlook for this year. I'm pleased to be joined today by the president of our university, Dr. Fadlo Khuri. Dr. Fadlo Khuri, thank you so much for sitting down with us again. This is a yearly tradition that we've carried on. So thank you for being so enthusiastic about joining us again.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, and it is a tradition.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you,
For the 11th year this year, right?
I think I've done it all 11 years.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's beautiful. To start, I want to ask you about this past spring term, which obviously saw the Israeli war on Hezbollah and Lebanon, and we saw the students, the faculty, and the staff go through an incredibly difficult time of displacement, loss, and fear. And so, to start, what has this period been like for you personally?
Well, the period has been, it's silly to describe it as difficult. Every semester except this last fall semester has been difficult in a different way. It's like the Anna Karenina line about marriages and happy marriages and unhappy marriages. But not that I'm suggesting I have an unhappy marriage with AUB, but we have an enduring marriage with AUB.
Yeah.
But this has been a semester with unusual challenges. We've faced war situations before. The war of the fall of 2024 was extremely intense. We had a lot more trauma come to the hospital in one surge. Right. But this semester has been very difficult because, of course, the Israeli assault on Hezbollah has included large parts of Lebanon, including the strikes on April 8th that were right next door, really. 100 strikes, more than 100 strikes in 10 minutes, 360 killed, 1,600 injured. And it's been about navigating the challenges that were old and some that were new. So the ones that were old, we have an exhausted faculty and staff. The student body, of course, was hoping, you included, that let's end the semester on high. War prevents that. So you have issues of morale, okay? Especially, to be very candid, because when the war started, I was on my way to the US for several important meetings, including those to ensure we have continued support for our scholarships and other programs in the US, a tech conference, etc. So that was one challenge. Second challenge was the level of threat. As you may recall, at one point there was a legitimate statement from the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps indicating they would target American universities in West Asia. Of course, that includes AUB and the Lebanese American University and others. So that was unusual. The number of our students and faculty and staff who were displaced was similar to, but in some cases exceeded what we experienced in the fall of 2024. There are, again, the financial losses at the hospital to deal with. And of course, there's the challenge of helping everyone finish the semester while supporting their mental health and getting them to graduation. All while dealing with a remarkable team that was giving everything, but was, frankly, had been through the fire for 7 straight years at least. So it was I don't think difficult is the right word. I don't think exhausting quite captures it, because we're still here and we're still getting things done. But it was yet another semester where we needed to show our tenacity, our resilience. I think it was also a semester I learned not to push for anti-fragility. Tenacity and resilience were the targets here. Everyone did their job extremely well. The students talked to us constantly. We had very good USFC. People communicated with us. We're not ready to come back. We're not ready for exams. So the provost and I and the deans were able to continue this dialogue. Faculty had their concerns. Staff had their concerns. So it was really a challenge to navigate. But we're almost there.
We're almost there, right? And speaking about, the USFC, you just presided over the last bi-weekly USFC meeting, and you've hosted over the last couple of weeks since students have been back on campus, completely offline, the 10 town hall meetings. And so I know from my friends, I know from my colleagues that there's actually many people who have a lot of concerns and don't think to go to town hall meetings, which you host alongside other administrators. And so can you tell us a bit about what happens in those meetings and why they should sort of take their concerns to those town halls?
Sure. So, we stopped doing town hall meetings with students because the attendance was always very poor.
Yeah.
So when I started, we did them. If I was talking about tuition, I could fill the room. But of course, I don't have enough information about tuition to share for an hour. And that's really not the only thing we do. The town halls were with the faculty and staff and uh, administrations, including hospital administrators, in Beirut and in Paphos. They were very well attended across the university. All 10 were well attended. They're about having a dialogue. So I tend to speak for 20 minutes to explain where we are, state of the university, try to get rid of any myths, dissipate these, urban legends that are out there about speakers being canceled or other things, silly things. But to let people know that we are moving forward, that we have confidence that the semester will end, that we have confidence that we'll take care of them, to get rid of some of their fears that we can legitimately about layoffs or downsizing or cuts in salaries or benefits or other things, and to let them know we're all in it together. I think the town halls were excellent. It's a shame that the students at AUB in Beirut don't come to it, because when I do have them in Paphos, there's almost 100% attendance, which is remarkable. Of course, we have a larger student body, but the student body here communicates mostly via social media. We can see them present at the time of the student elections.
Absolutely, yeah.
It works in terms of my relationship with the students because I work closely with the USFC, and we are open to individual students. So it's not an issue for me. We meet people where they are. But with the USFC, we were able to consistently, these bi-monthly meetings, navigate the issues of the day, be they students who are struggling to make the last payment to graduate. Was it the exam pressure? Was it the sense of some that they felt, they just needed a mental or physical break or both? So I thought that's the way that I find most effective at communicating with the students, both through the USFC, through my president's perspectives that you hinted at, and then the faculty and the Senate and the deans disseminated with the individual faculties.
Okay, so speaking of the university student faculty committee, of which there are the student elected representatives, they reported to, as individual student representatives, they reported to Outlook that actually the specific detailed items of the university's budget have not been disclosed this year to the committee, though they've been, as recently as 2021, been sort of discussed openly with the council. So who has taken that decision and for what reason?
So that's me. It's not typical that the USFC sees the university budget, but the USFC VP and treasurer see the budget as it's developed. Up through 2021, 2022, we did show the budget because we were transitioning to dollars.
Okay.
And that was a big step. But for next year, the tuition increase has already been set at 4% over a 4-year period. Next year is the 4th year. So we will do our calculations and see what the raise will be for the following several years, but we're not there yet. This year, the budget discussions happened late for everyone, except for myself, the CFO, and the leadership of the board, because there was such a shifting dynamic: war, rising fuel prices, affordability, rising supplies, need for more financial aid. So everyone from the Financial Planning Committee, which includes the deans, the students, the senators, have only seen the budget in the last 10 days or so. We would have showed it to the USFC, but as you know, Dina, by then, the board, the exams have started, and most of the USFC is gone. In previous years, we had to plan so far ahead, and we didn't have a war.
Right.
The last time we had a war was in a fall semester where really there isn't that information. It was actually easy to share very difficult budgetary news. It wasn't easy to navigate it, but to share it during the Thawra and pandemic and subsequently, because we were online, right?
Absolutely.
And you can bring the group together, but there's no no reason for anyone to think this was a lack of transparency. It was just the fact that the budget was so dynamic. Had we gone with our usual timeline, this would have been a much tougher budget. So this budget doesn't have a significant impact for the students, except that we increased the financial aid that was planned because of the number of people whose parents have lost their jobs or places or homes. So that's the only reason. So I suspect the students would be quite happy with this budget.
Right.
The fact the staff wound up being happy with it, at the end of the year, that only people, I don't want to say unhappy with it, challenged with it, are the administration, because we're running a deficit this year and we'll run a deficit next year, but we'll figure out a way to handle that.
Okay, so as you said, you mentioned the tuition increase, but as well, the university is continuing to expand its student financial aid. I mean, recently a Change Starts Here proposal in the USFC passed the USFC Emergency Support Fund, and that's going to be navigated through the Office of Financial Aid. But regarding aid funds, we spoke last year a lot about, US aid, and now reportedly a lot of its functions have been folded into other departments of the US State Department. And so I'm wondering, is AUB pursuing those successor programs?
So I think this is an area the students probably should come to town halls and should read more, to be very blunt. We did not make any public announcement last year, but we were the only institution in the Middle East that was able to keep all of our financial aid from the former US aid and have it moved to the State Department under the State Department National Security Fund, new name, when USAID was closed. 2 other universities in the world kept their scholarship funding. So everyone was made whole. And yet we still increased the financial aid that comes out of the budget of the university that comes from tuition. So currently, I think we spend about $100 million a year helping students in various ways. Of course, we're continuing to apply, and that was one of the priorities for my March visit. Why I couldn't come right back is I had a week in Washington, D.C. At the time Congress is putting together its annual budget to continue to advocate for AUB and LAU and AUC and others getting their Middle East Program Initiative funding and this funding hopefully restored for the others. We at AUB are going to continue to get it. So those programs, as you know, cover probably over 1,000 students in different ways at AUB. But the large majority of students benefit from other financial aid. Where does that come from? Well, we have the MasterCard program. We have ULIB. We have a lot of donor aid. Some comes from the endowment. Some comes to be spent then. So it's an ongoing process, I think. But yes, we're continuing to be supported by the U.S. government. Since we were the only institution in the Middle East who had its funding restored completely, we agreed with the State Department not to make any public announcement about that. But I can assure you, every one of the students who were U.S. aid recipients knows very well, every one of them knows very well that their funding continued. So they were relieved when we informed them individually last June and July.
And so, I mean, you also spoke about the deficit, the budget deficit, and is there plans to, or is it part of the strategy at all? Is it in the cards at all to diversify away from US government funding to European funding and Gulf funding? Is that at all part of the what's on the table?
It's all part of the strategy, but this takes years, Dina. You know, we have been diversifying. We did get some EU funding for research ahead of schedule. The American University of Mediterranean is growing a few years behind the really optimistic scenarios that the consultants gave us, but nonetheless in a very healthy way. If things continue, we'll have 400 students at AUB Mediterranean in this fall, where it will start mid-September. But after that, we are going to continue to apply for Gulf funding. We've gotten significant support from Qatar, and that has been since the crisis started. We have projects proposed in other Arab countries that are not at the stage I can announce them. But we're not as dependent on U.S. aid overall, not just U.S. aid agency, but U.S. funding at this point as we were, let's say, 2019, 2020, 21. We're much more diversified. We have the Lebanese economy, while it hasn't recovered, it seems the bottom has more or less settled out. So we have support from tuition. We have support from hospital and clinic revenues. We have support from grants, from the endowment, and from, yes, American philanthropy, Qatari philanthropy, and European grants. So we are more diversified. And with AUB online, the Kisarwan Medical Center gradually building up, we'll be more diversified over the next 5 to 10 years.
So moving on to the what you mentioned earlier, which were the threats to university campus. Administrators describe AUB as rooted in Lebanon while carrying an American institutional identity and value system. And we know that this earlier this year, with the recent war, AUB was grouped with other American institutions, and the threat was directed to it, as well as other US affiliated universities and institutions by the IRGC. So do you think, given that context, that we can continue to, as an institution, choose our own self-definition, or has that really been settled for us?
It was settled a long time ago. We're an American institution with deep roots in Lebanon, the region. It really is that simple. And as we discovered when we eventually connected indirectly to the IRGC and the Iranian government, there were no threats to AUB. They could not clarify that. It took a couple of days because we don't have any direct contacts. I don't have any direct contacts with the Iranians. And many of my indirect contacts have been killed by the Israelis.
Right.
So, and we'll get to this subject of candor, I suspect, later in the interview. But they made it clear that no, we were not a target. Also, we have indirect contacts through the Americans and others with the Israelis. We're not a target for the Israelis. We're not a target for the Iranians. We're not a target for the Americans. For us, the biggest danger is this lone wolf phenomenon where people, including AUB students, believe these ridiculous rumors that are generated by the yellow press and others in the region. So I think, no, we're very proud of the fact that we are an American institution with deep roots in Lebanon and the Middle East. In fact, in Iran and in Israel, there are people who have an institutional memory of AUB in that they have relatives who've graduated here. The Iranians more recently, right? Because the Israelis haven't been coming here since 48, since there was a state of Israel, because of the situation between Lebanon and Israel. I think we're an institution that's very clear about its values. We believe in American, or I prefer to say universal values. You can call them aspirational American values. We graduate people who are free to have whatever opinion they want. We like to think you guys are among the best and brightest, and we have good reason to believe that. But I don't think we're a party to these conflicts from the ideological or physical perspective. However, when our community suffers, we suffer with it. Whoever is the root cause of that suffering, and we are clear that we are there to help. We're not there so much to condemn. I'm never someone who's found condemning things very useful. My only exception is I condemn the managers of my own sports team when they make decisions that make me unhappy. I allow myself that exception. But otherwise, we have a world full of condemnation, and it does nothing, yields nothing. And with social media now at its ages, the level of condemnation and, really silly discourse has gone up several logfolds. But yeah, I want to be clear. The Iranian foreign minister made it clear to the Speaker of Parliament that they had all the respect in the world for AUB, and AUB was not a target. And because we asked, neither were LAU, IC, or ACS. So I was grateful for that answer.
Okay, but so there is like some kind of message. Like I want to question the messaging a bit, which is, I mean, you sort of mentioned the yellow press, and that this may be earlier in the interview. You mentioned that it was some sort of credible threat at some point.
Yes.
Before it was communicated that it was there were no credible threats, right? So in the initial university press, the idea was that there were no credible threats, but we were taking a precautionary 2 days off, right?
Let me push back. Okay. You guys are students. The faculty are faculty.
Yeah.
collectively you have very limited administrative experience.
Yeah,
Let's
absolutely.
be a little bit humble and realistic.
Of course, yeah.
It's incumbent on us, on me, to make sure the threat is not credible. So safety is paramount. The very first thing that your parents, the faculty, the staff, their parents, their loved ones expect of us, which is appropriate, is to steward the safety of the university. So I was physically here during those 48 hours, but I did not feel comfortable having you guys here during those 48 hours or any non-essential staff. Physicians, nurses, staff for the hospital center administration, we serve our duty, but we didn't pressure anyone.
Okay.
It took me close to 40 hours, more, 46 hours, 47 hours to get reassurances that were credible enough.
Okay.
And I would rather have another 2, 3, 4 days online than take risks. That's nothing to do with, this situation has nothing to do with the yellow press. That's the other issue. This situation with a very credible threat to all universities in West Asia that the IRGC left out there. Mm-hmm. And they could have reassured us immediately. They chose to leave the threat out there for a while before they reassured us. Similarly, we don't get any reassurances from the Israelis when they're going to hit near here. We are not party to this conflict, and we prefer to keep it that way. But in terms of decision-making and communication, excuse me, I think the communication was immaculate. And I'm not being proud here, I'm being practical. At some point, one of the reasons the students come into the university is to grow towards adulthood, which is difficult. Some of the faculty need to continue their growth towards adulthood. Right. But nitpicking over messaging, please, this is silly, honestly.
Yeah. So maybe to clarify, I mean, by messaging, also just understanding what the reality was about the credibility of the threat. But since you also mentioned it, in your the issue about using the terms and speaking plainly,
yes.
Speaking plainly about who this conflict is between, what are the parties involved. I really appreciate what you said about the idea that there's so much condemnation out there and does not seem to shape political realities in any way, shape or form, right? So speaking truth to that power, I mean, speaking truth to power, what really does that mean, right? And we should be, have some hubris, or beware of our hubris. So what do you say to people who say that, while you describe the suffering of the war in vivid terms, you do not name plainly, the actors of this war, namely Israel?
I think you guys should read more. Read my article in The National. I described the US and Israel starting the war, an unprovoked attack on Iran. I name Israel in the April 7th bombing. This is more urban legend, Dina. This is, I think, faculty-stimulated confusion of the students based on a message from the Office of Communications. This is just about keeping you guys safe. No, I do name everyone, Israelis, Iranians, and there's a very specific reason for that. I don't name the Israelis or Iranians or Americans because I'm not worried that it could impact your funding, which you started. No, I am worried. But I choose to name whoever is responsible for taking an action. I don't make a statement about everything that happens, but when it impacts AUB, we make a statement naming who carried out the action for a very obvious reason, because we want the students to be brave enough to not censor themselves. We want the faculty and staff to be brave enough to not censor themselves. I share my opinions and ideals and President's perspective in the numerous speeches I give, but a statement like that is a statement of fact. And the statements, when I name the Iranians or the Israelis, it's not because I'm angry at one or the other. I don't allow myself to angry. AUB does not have the luxury to afford my being angry. I have to make measured decisions. The same for our administration. But we have no problem naming who does things. We have no problems acting. But we try not to editorialize all too often, because I believe in academic freedom and freedom of speech, And I recognize that in this position, or any university president's position, if you start to infuse your opinion, you're going to influence more people than you should, and that could suppress academic freedom and freedom of speech, which has been, certainly academic freedom has so been badly compromised at American universities. And my goal is to not in any way compromise academic freedom, to allow the broadest possible discourse. That's why we try to stick with the facts. If you guys read, you guys as in students read President's Perspective, you'll see my point of view. I know the alumni and faculty and the staff read it far more often than they would admit. But when we make a statement, it is intended to be a statement of fact, a statement to guide you all. But if you read my article in the National, I was very clear who did what.
Okay. Now, two more items really, and I just want to move on to the AUB-MC admissions into medical school. And so, some students have expressed concerns that actually the admission outcomes are not completely insulated from, sectarian and political dynamics in Lebanon. As an Outlook team, when we've tried to investigate these claims, we always realize that they're kind of like based in hearsay and that they fall apart. But this has been recurrent, year after year, and seems to be a more, heightened as an expression this year in particular. But, my question to you as an administrator, really, at what threshold of evidence do you begin to investigate these claims, and have they has this file been opened in recent years?
First of all, I want to commend you for good journalism. That's a tough question to ask, and these all have been good questions to ask, so well done. Any evidence of sectarianism would trigger an investigation and serious consequences for anyone found. I said this when I started. Don't be fooled. Even though I spent most of my life in the US, I can smell sectarianism. And sectarianism has no role in AUB. We had a discussion with the Faculty of Medicine, not about admissions decisions, but about referral patterns. And I was very clear. If we catch anyone with sectarianism or favoritism in how they refer to a colleague, we will fire them. There is no sectarianism in the selection of medical students or undergraduates or others that we've ever been able to find even a hint of. And yes, we monitor all these things. In fact, my concern about the way we do admissions is most of the world does admissions based on getting to know the individual, whether through an alumni interview, a legitimate interview in person, grades at their university or their high school for college students, and then standardized tests. It's a combination of the above. We don't interview people undergraduate. Okay, we have a committee, and they do needs-blind admission, and I have no evidence of any sectarianism. In fact, we've turned over that committee because I thought it was healthy. I don't think there's a single continuing member from when I started. We have a new director of admissions. It's good to shake things up every once in a while, including in my job, okay? It's normal. The medical school admissions committee is overseen by people of the highest integrity, women and men who are completely non-sectarian. I think if they caught one case of sectarianism or favoritism or cronyism or so-and-so's daughter or son, they would deal with it way before we had to. But we do monitor it. There is no substance to the idea that there's any sectarianism in admissions. It's purely based on a combination of GPA, performance on the MCATs, and performance on the interview. The interview has made people uncomfortable. I think that's where people's accusations come into. But in fact, as a physician, Dina, you have to know how to navigate the encounter with the other person, be it a patient or family. And the simple truth is all of us grow in that at different speeds and in different ways. Some of the brightest students we've had test-wise in the last 11 years that I've been here did not get into medical school. And of course, it's infuriating. It can be extremely disappointing. We try to prevent it from being devastating because that's too far. We've gone too far in this, oh my God, I didn't get in In Lebanon, it's in some ways worse than the US, but in some ways it's better because there's more family and community support. But the number of outraged calls I've gotten over the years is impressive, but actually declining over time. It doesn't matter if you are the son and daughter of the highest authority in this land or in any other land. It is down to three things for medical school admissions: your undergraduate performance based on the strength of your university. We're very clear that we favor AUB students or students from the very best universities abroad. So if someone applies from Cornell, UCLA, Yale, McGill, yes, okay, Harvard, those kids, we do think, we take it into consideration. Now, Harvard, 80% of their grades are A's, so they do factor in this grade inflation thing. But we like to diversify. We don't want the entire class to be AUB undergraduates. And that upsets people because we have probably 2 to 3 times as many outstanding young people who want to go to medical school as we have slots. And for that, I'm sorry, but that's the reality. The reality is people get frustrated. Yeah. They're young, and maybe it's a defense mechanism to say it's the system, it's sectarianism, it's favoritism. I don't mind that because I don't want them to be angry with themselves because they've really done nothing wrong. It's just that someone else happened to pip them. That's all. The margins are that fine. So we have wonderful students with an excellent system. It's a little too stiff for my liking. But it's gotten better over time.
There's some vagueness about the nature of how these decisions are made, and they contribute to the assertion of these fallacies. And wouldn't a more open and admission process clear up these allegations, like the macro data of the database of the Associated American Medical Colleges? So
there is less communication of macro data on how we select our medical students. Yes, we could communicate it better. And that's a good suggestion we'll take back next year and say, maybe we should be very clear in the beginning, have the Associate Dean for Medical Education, who's an excellent communicator, but very humble, Ramzi Sabra, maybe give a session to the undergraduates. How are medical students selected? Either him or Zaina Kanafani, who's the head of undergraduate medical admission, or someone. Speak to our community, similar to the open houses we have for our incoming 10th and 11th graders, where in 2025 we had more than 9,500 people sign up. We probably should have an open day where anyone interested in applying to the AUB Faculty of Medicine's incoming MD class, should probably have a town hall. That people would attend. The great is the enemy of the good. Do I communicate perfectly? Of course not. Do we make perfect admission decisions? Of course not. But the idea is to keep improving and keep improving your communication as well as your processes. I think it's an excellent suggestion, and I'll take it back to the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, Dr. Raymond Sawaya, and we'll think about it, but I do think it has a lot of merit.
Okay, thank you. I mean, thank you for all the time that you've given us. I just have a final question about Outlook, in regards to the return to the physical print. When we've tried to, recenter campus as sort of the subject of Outlook, we face some resistance at an individual level from administrators and instructors who have been sort of hesitant to give comment about their decisions, what their office represents, because the culture has been dismantled over the past decade of no physical prints. And so maybe coming from you, if they hear that there's some kind of reassurance of, if a student journalist at Outlook or elsewhere, is investigating a university decision, fairly and squarely, right? Not anything just for the sake of enticement. Will they be faced with, institutional resistance, or is there some kind of protection for what we do?
We've tried for 11 years to push an atmosphere of comfort, communications in difficult times, and to feel free about speaking. within, of course, limits. You can't disclose personnel data. There's student confidentiality. That's a law. So some of the nitty gritty they can't share. They can't share financial numbers
Of course,
before a certain time. But I think journalism really matters. And obviously, as you know by now, we are giving an honorary doctorate to one of the world's greatest living journalists in Christiane Amanpour. She's not afraid to ask difficult questions. Now, she does them with great elegance and tremendous grace. I don't expect a 19 through 25-year-old to have that wealth of life experience. But over my 11 years, in general, Outlook has done a very good job. And we would love to see people being more candid. But I have a request. I'm not a fan of the off-the-record quote. Every time I've spoken to the media, with one exception when they didn't respect it because it was about an individual's health that I had not seen, I've said, I don't speak off the record. I don't speak off the record, okay? We would like people to speak on the record. I challenge anyone to prove that in my 11 years, anyone has been disciplined for what they've said, okay? Now, if you attack the university, well, it's your employer, okay, or your educator, and that no longer becomes a personal decision. But if you attack the university without evidence, life has consequences, right? But to give an opinion, to give your genuine opinion based on your reading of the facts is something we encourage. More importantly, it's about role modeling for our students. You asked me why I did or didn't name the Israelis or the Iranians. We named them because we don't want you to be afraid to tell the truth in your lives. That's essential. That's part of the university experience. If all of you and the Lebanese people are cowed by fear, then there's no hope for this country. America is a crazy country going into its 250th anniversary, deeply divided. And some of the things I see sadden me tremendously. But I'm glad people are still speaking their opinion here and there. Okay, so it gives us hope. There are societies where the consequence for that is physical danger. And here there are certainly some threats, right? Yeah. The state does not have control of violence in this country in any way, from external and internal actors. Right. Still, it's not just courage to tell the truth, it's citizenship. And great nations are built on citizens. So we would encourage people to speak on the record to Outlook without fear of consequence.
Now, with regards to, we're thinking, as you said, as young journalists, we do make mistakes, and we certainly, I mean, yes, I do think it's great as well. But we're thinking about, in the following year, how we can incorporate maybe a faculty advisory board, which is actually part of the Outlook bylaws. But as we bring these faculty on board to advise us on what are the let's say faculty or department level stories that are important, is there some kind of responsibility as well, or some kind of protection? I mean, from what you're saying, so if student journalism is responsible, if things are not off the record, if things are corroborated and not just sort of baseless attacks that are name calling, is there sort of a mandate for Outlook to, at least within the university, since it's non-sectarian and non-political, to open up a conversation about what's happening at educational level and administrative level?
Yes, that would be great. I want to advise you to take a leaf from, or a page from, the book that the USFC has. In addition to 19 students, I believe, who are elected, and the Dean of Students, there are 7 faculty members elected, and they play a vital role and they vote. I strongly recommend Outlook to try something like that. Try to have a board of, let's say, 7 people from 7 different faculties, maybe even take someone from AUB Mediterraneo, or someone from each of their schools. Have a more complete view. All too often, you see, given so many of the journalists are from FAS, right?
Absolutely.
You're getting a very FAS-centric view.
Absolutely.
It's not the whole university. And I encourage you, because I'm interested in preserving and promoting Outlook, you need to look across the university. The interests of the medical students are very different than the students applying to the Faculty of Medicine. This interest in the Maroon Zaman Faculty of Engineering, Sulaiman Olayan School of Business are very different. So that would be my recommendation, Dina, for next year. Keep Mr. Khuri because he's a veteran journalist. You know, Brain Khuri was editor-in-chief of Nahar and he's a wealth of experience as an actual journalist. Then try to get a group of faculty advisors from the different faculty. That way, not only would you cover more germane and more broad issues, but you would appeal to a broader audience. I fear, since I've been here, because the people who are excited about journalism naturally are in FAS.
Yeah.
It becomes a self-perpetuating process, right?
Absolutely.
We write about things, arts, humanities, freedom. You know, one year where Outlook was quite a challenge, I went to them because they started by accusing the former prime minister of high treason and demanded he be tried by court. I said, Outlook doesn't have an unlimited political license. If you're calling for the former prime minister to be tried, I have the minister of communications saying AUB has broken a law. You can attack me. That's your safe target you're looking at. Not that I particularly enjoy it, but it's fine. It comes with the territory. You can criticize the administration, criticize the university. I would balance it with what you love, which I think most years Outlook has done. It's been a balance of the things that are positive and the things that need improvement, but broaden that width and breadth and depth of interest to things that concern the students across the 7 faculties and in Mediterranean. I think you'll have a much better readership. And to do that, you need advice from people in different faculties.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for this interview. You've been so generous with your time and with your answers. I really appreciate it. And it's my final interview, I suppose, as editor-in-chief. So I'm so grateful that it's with you. And yeah, thank you.
I enjoyed it. I'm grateful for your making time so late and as you prepare for your graduation.
Yeah.
What's next for you? If I get to ask one question.
Well, of course, I'm applying for graduate programs in economics, and I'm hoping to do that and maybe work on writing on the side. Absolutely, that's something I want to keep.
You should keep writing up. You're very good at it, and it's been a skill for me that is one you can't take for granted. It comes and it goes, but the more you write, the easier it becomes. So.
Absolutely.
Congratulations. Yeah. I look forward to seeing you on stage.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.